What's going on, Internet? Hope everybody's doing well. Welcome to my channel on Melonare. My name is Rob, and today we're going to take a look at the Melonare PM-1 in-ear monitor system. Let's go. Now, before I say anything about this system, yes, Melonare did send this out for free. No, they did not pay me for it, though, although I probably should be asking for money at this point. I'm getting enough products, but neither here nor there. They didn't pay me for it, so I am going to be brutally honest in my opinions about it. So, yes, they sent it for free. No, they didn't pay me. And yes, I am going to be honest about my opinion. Let's go. So, if you are new to in-ear monitors, these little guys are a wireless transmitter and receiver so that you can use a pair of isolating headphones to be able to hear yourself all around on stage. Basically, it's a replacement for your traditional wedge style monitor. Now, why would you even want to consider going with something like this? So those wedge monitors are very directional, so if you step out of the way of them, you no longer hear yourself. And they also cause sort of feedback issues on stage in general, right? You've got your microphone for either your lead vocalist or your backup vocalist, and you're blasting the sound up so that you can hear yourself, and well, the microphone can now also hear itself. So especially if you're a smaller band and you're looking to run sound yourself, the most common source of feedback is those monitors, especially if it's a mobile rig and you're setting it up at different bars, restaurants, whatnot. That's probably where your feedback is coming from, and this will basically eliminate that issue, because now each person in your band can have a wireless transmission and have a mix of the group, and can also, depending on your setup, have a tailored mix to exactly what they want. Now they can hear themselves better anywhere you go around on stage. So if the guitar player is going to take a solo and is going to ham it up and steps forward, now they're not in front of their wedge, well, they can still hear themselves because we've got a wireless transmitter. So that's the benefit. If you've never used in-ears before, this is the biggest thing I would recommend you investing in general. This will radically improve both your performance, but also how the band sounds live, because now the stage volume is much quieter. So again, if you're trying to mix it yourself and do everything yourself, that will greatly simplify the process for you. If you're lucky enough to have a sound person running everything for you, then yeah, it's going to make their life a whole lot easier, because now you potentially can do your mix yourself for your monitors, and they can just wear you with front of house. So that is the why you would even bother looking into something like this. Now let's get into the features. So the PM-1 is basically these two little body pack units. One is the transmitter, one is the receiver. It operates on UHF 500 megahertz, and it has 10 channels. So if you're having issues with connection, you can change those channels to help clear that up. It can be used in mono or in stereo, and features a 130-foot range. So what do you get in the box? You get the transmitter and you get the receiver. They're both the same, basically, form factor. They both have belt clips on them, so you can put them on your belt. Admittedly, the transmitter, you're probably never going to need to do that, right? Because this is going to be sitting over by the mixer or wherever the source is coming from, and then this is the part that's actually going to be mounted on the performer. But either way, they do both have belt clips. You get a dual USB charging cable, which is pretty cool. It's Type A on the other end, and then you get USB-C ends, which actually charge the units. You get an 1/8" TRS cable in order to basically send your source to the transmitter. There's a left and right 1/8" combo adapter. So why would you need that? So let's say you wanted to send a stereo signal, you would need left and right outputs, and then this is a way of combining them into the stereo input on the transponder in order to beam it over to the receiver. So that cable gives you the ability of getting that stereo signal into one cable, basically, and then into the transponder part. And lastly, you get a TRS adapter so that you can go from a 1/4 inch, stepping it down to the 1/8 inch size. So they're giving you the cables and the adapter that you're most likely going to need in order to get your setup up and running, although you will want to take a look at your mixer or wherever it is you're going to be getting your source from in order to figure out if that is the correct equipment for you, right? Depends on your setup. So on the transmitter, on the front of it, you've got a switch to change between your stereo and your mono modes. You've also got a power button to turn the thing on and off. You've got a plus and minus button in order to change channels. And on the top of the pack, you've got your 1/8 inch input jack and an 1/8 inch output for headphones, or if you want to send to another device. Like I mentioned, the transmitter does come with a belt pack, but I don't really think you're going to need that most likely. For me, I have it Velcro down to my desk near my mixer so it doesn't just like flop around. But you do have the option, depending on your setup, if you want to wear it as well, or if someone needs to wear it, that is a possibility. On the receiver, you've got a mono and stereo switch on the face of it, a power button on the side, as well as a volume up and down button. And then you've got your 1/8 inch output for your headphones. This one does have, obviously, the belt pack, so your performer is going to want to have it on their hip. And all of this costs $80 off of Amazon. On the face of both packs, you do have little LED lights, one for battery and one for connection. The cool thing is that the battery LEDs changes color to show what the level is inside it, so that you're not guessing how much battery life you have left. Those lights come in 4 different colors: green, orange, yellow, and then red. And obviously each one is just stepping down and telling you you're getting lower and lower on battery life. The sample rate on it is 48 kilohertz at 24-bit, which is higher than CD quality. CD quality is 44.1 16-bit, so you are getting 48K at 24-bit. The frequency response range is 20 hertz down low, all the way up to 20 kilohertz up top. You've got a 109 decibel signal to noise ratio and a 103 decibel dynamic range. So now that we're done covering our features, let's get into the good. So the first good thing about the Melonare in-ear system is just how light these things are. They are all plastic construction, which we will talk about in the bad for obvious reasons, but because they're all plastic, they're extremely light. So I was used to using a Sennheiser in-ear monitor system, and the belt pack was all metal. It's actually surprisingly heavy and bulky. Now, most of the time when I use mine, I'm actually not performing. I use it to teach my virtual guitar lessons. I know that might seem a little ridiculous, like you're sitting right there. Anytime anything can be wireless, it just makes life easier, less likely of me getting tangled in something, tripping, knocking a guitar over, yada yada. So the weight didn't necessarily matter for standing, but it did become uncomfortable because I would wear my in-ears sometimes for up to almost 8 hours, teaching, even just practicing and recording and doing different things here at my home studio. So I do really like the size. They're teeny, they're lightweight, and they're very easy to use. In order to get these synced up and connected, you literally just pop them on. You've got your blue, kind of looks like a chain LED, which shows you when they're connected. No issue, out of the box, popped them on. They connected right away, up and running immediately. So no putzing around and having to necessarily scan for channels and do that kind of stuff, although we will talk about that in the negative too. So as far as ease of use, yeah, you pop them on, they connected right away. You've got your channel switch button, so you can manually scan around if you're having trouble with your connection to find a better, cleaner, clearer channel. Another big plus is the price. I mean, it's $80, right? If you've ever priced out legit in-ear monitor systems, most of them start around $500, and really the ones that I would consider are more like the better part of $1,000. Before Melonare reached out and sent this out to me, I was considering buying the Shure system and replacing my Sennheiser, and damn, the Shure is $900. The equivalent Sennheiser is now $1,200 for basically the modern version of what I've been running. So for $80, go get yourself a pair of Shure 215 IEM headphones, And man, you know, that's like, you know, basically $200 and you've got an in-ear setup. So especially if you're a musician just getting started, man, it will make a big difference in your quality of your performance. Being able to hear yourself clear will make you play better. It will maybe potentially scare you as well, as you kind of hear what you really sound like while you're playing, but it will make you play better in the long run. So, you know, for the price point being as recklessly dirt cheap as this is, you just, you know, $80, that's killer. And then the last positive is I found the noise floor on these to be very low. My Sennheiser system, I had kind of really two issues with it. It's an older one. Really the biggest is the noise floor was really high on the Sennheiser, like just very noisy. It's this kind of constant shh sort of a noise. And these are much better, actually. They're much quieter than the Sennheisers. So that's a major plus. And another positive for these is the battery life. I've found it to be surprisingly good. I've been able to teach for basically 5 hours straight, and the battery packs had just gotten into red. So that's pretty impressive battery life for something that is so small and light. Very unlikely anyone will be performing and need them to be on constantly for 5 hours straight like that. So if you're good about being diligent on your set breaks and you plug them in and charge them, yeah, this will 100% get you through. You know, most bands usually play maybe around like 3 hours in a night, maybe 3 sets, 3 50-minute sets, depending on what your band does. Yeah, plenty of battery life to get through something like that. That was basically 4.5, 5 hours straight, not being charged, not being turned off either. So pretty good battery life, not too shabby. It's also worthwhile to point out that yes, you can charge them and use them at the same time. So if they happen to go down on you and you've got like a long enough USB cable, you can run it over and charge potentially, especially that transmitter, right? Transmitter pack really doesn't need to be wireless. So yeah, you can charge it and you can use them at the same time. So good battery life. If it dies on you, you can charge and use it, especially that transmitter. I found that the transmitter, for whatever reason, battery gets worn down quicker than the receiver, which actually I think is a good thing. Transmitters, again, probably sitting next to the mixer. Just keep a spare, you know, USB cable handy, plug the thing in, charge it while you're using it, you know, and then you don't have to worry about the transmitter dying, and then just plug in your receiver on your set break and get it charged. So good battery life, and you can charge it and use it at the same time. Like I said, go with some Shure 215s. They're like $100. This is $80. You know, with tax, you're probably all in around $200. That is probably the best investment you can do to improve your performance and your consistency live. Now, let's talk about the band. The first thing about the bad and the biggest issue is, despite them claiming it's 48K sampling and 24-bit, it does not sound that good actually. So there's a clear drop in frequency and fidelity. It is not the same quality all around the frequency range. So being quieter is fantastic, but obviously that lack of a full frequency response is a bit disappointing. I'm not gonna say that their marketing material is false. It could very well be sampling at 48K at 24-bit, but I think some frequency fidelity is being lost somewhere along the line. So I do think you need to know that. I don't think the audio quality is bad though. It's definitely usable. I've been using it to teach and it's fine, but it's not as good as a higher system. I think it's unreasonable to expect it to be at $80 versus my Sennheiser system, which I bought used for around $250, $300, I think. So, you know, the Sennheiser system is an older one, but you know, triple the price basically. The next problem is the reliability of the frequency. I believe that these are digital versus a analog one with my Sennheiser, and the problem is anytime you run into interference with this, you get digital artifacts, which if something is analog, the artifacts is like just a kind of a white noise sound that tends to be easier to like ignore. Digital artifacts, either the signal would drop altogether, or they're just, you know, this digitizing beeps and bloops noises, which I found to be harder to kind of push through and sort of concentrate, not have it throw you off. Now, the interesting thing is I'm using it in really close quarters, like it's within 3 feet of each other while I'm teaching. And I did run into some issue of some artifacts occasionally, or the signal just straight up dropping. It wasn't super common, but it did happen enough that I do feel the need to mention it. And I was used to before, while I was teaching lesson, if I had to like run upstairs or something for a second, I'd keep my in-ear pack on and I could hear my student play basically anywhere in my house. Second I went upstairs, signal totally cut out altogether on these. Now I did experiment and did try a couple different channels, and still kind of the results were the same. So obviously that was in my basement through walls. If you're on a stage, there will be no walls, and they're advertising it as 130-foot range. I am just a bit skeptical of how these might perform actually out in the wild on stage, especially when you've got competing wireless signals. In this day and age, there's a ton of Wi-Fi going, there's a ton of different Bluetooth channels, potentially a bunch of different wireless. I know for my band, we used wireless mics for our lead singers, we used wireless packs for the guitars. Now you're, potentially 4 or 5 wireless transmitters on stage, kind of competing for space. So your results may vary. Obviously, hit the channel button to fish around. The problem is, like a full-featured wireless system, you would be able to do a scan and then see how clear that channel potentially could be, and then basically pick the best channel right away. With something like this, you don't get any of that. So you do have to potentially hunt around to try to find a clear channel. As the night progresses, what might be clear in sound check might then not be clear as the bar fills up with 300 people with cell phones. So in my experience, I have found wireless technology can be kind of pushed to its brink, especially if you're in like a bar with a low ceiling. I've found, outdoors tended to be better for us for the most part, and then, kind of bars and anything, walls, a lot of people, all of a sudden, potential problems, especially if the wireless pack is on the other side of the bar and now blocked by a ton of people. So depending on where the sound person is and all that kind of stuff. So your results may vary. I did find it obviously usable here at my home studio. I don't think it's like a deal breaker, and I don't think it underperformed like absolutely horribly, but you should be aware. I think same deal with the frequency response claims. I think your 130 feet is probably gonna be more like 70 feet would be my best guess. So if you're gonna be playing on enormous stages, you're probably a band with a bigger budget, so you should buy something more legit. If you're a smaller band, you're playing like, smaller bars, coffee clubs, something like that. Yeah, I think this should work fine, but be ready to potentially troubleshoot on the fly. And the last negative with it is the build quality. They are pretty cheap. The buttons are pretty cheap. It's all plastic. I don't have a ton of confidence. If you're not one of those people who are good at like taking care of your equipment, I don't have a ton of confidence that this is going to be horribly roadworthy. For what I do at my home studio, yeah, this is fantastic. It just sits on my desk. I charge them with that dual USB-C cable that came with it between each lesson. And hey, it's going to work fine for me, but yeah, build quality is not terribly robust. So none of those negatives are huge deal breakers in my opinion, but I do think you need to be aware of it. Again, if you're a bigger band that's gonna be playing on bigger stages, you're making more money, just invest in a better in-ear system. But if you're a smaller band, just playing smaller spots, you're only getting paid a couple $100, yeah, this could totally work as a interim and hopefully make your performance better, and then hopefully mean that you lead to better paying gigs where you could then invest in something more legit. But at $80, damn, that's a solid way to get things started. So thank you for watching this review of the Melonare PM-1 in-ear monitor system. If you liked it, hit like and subscribe. If you're feeling extra frisky, maybe even hit that bell. Here on my channel, I do mostly guitar stuff. I'm a shreddy, prog metal kind of guitar player guy, but I do a lot of product reviews and this kind of thing as well. So again, if you dug the vibe and all that kind of stuff, I'd appreciate the like and the sub helps the channel continue to grow. I'm a Berklee College of Music grad, and I do teach virtual online guitar lessons, so if you like all the shreddy bits in the middle and you're a guitar player and you're like, hey, I'd like to learn to shred, or if you want to learn some music theory, ear training, all that kind of good stuff, music production, I do all that. Contact info is down below. Hit me up. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.